I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. I'll turn it over to Taylor.
We'll swear in the new board members. Carol, if you stand up and raise your right hand. And read the section highlighted in yellow, please.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Board of Education according to the best of my ability.
Tim?
Yes, ma'am.
Your right hand.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the New York State, our state of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Board of Education trustee according to the best of my ability.
If you'll give us some, one of it backwards.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Board of Education trustee according to the best of my ability.
The emergency exits are to the rear, to the right, and the left. Taylor, would you call the roll, please?
Robert Toman,
Here.
James Mooney,
Present.
William Ball,
Here.
Jeffrey Riazzi,
Here.
Christine Bellarosa, here. Carol Kelder, here. Raymond McClary,
Here.
Scott Polson,
Here.
Timothy Wells.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Now that the new board members have been sworn in, we'll start the election of officers. Nominations are now in order for board president.
I'll nominate Bob Toman. Robert Toman.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Bob Toman is nominated. Are there any other nominations? If not, we will make a motion to close the nominations.
Motion.
I'm sorry.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor of Robert Toman as board president, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Robert Toman has been nominated president by a vote of 9-0. Now we will move in to the nomination for board vice president. Nomination?
I'd like to nominate Jeffrey Riazzi.
Okay.
Second.
Jeffrey Riazzi is nominated. Are there any other nominations? If there are no more nominations, a motion to close the nominations is in order. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Those in favor of Jeffrey Riazzi as vice president, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed? Jeffrey Riazzi has been elected vice president by a vote of 9-0. I will now administer the oath of the office of president and vice president.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of President of the Board of Education.
Yes?
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge start the duties of the office of Vice President, Board of Education, according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Just sign, please. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Item C, I'll call for motion for item C, 1, 2. C2, QQ. Moved by Mr. Paulson, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Keller. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oath of office of the district clerk.
Thank you. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of district.
No picture, Ms. Couchy? I'll entertain a motion for E1 through A through G.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wells, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mooney. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
F, other items, I'll entertain a motion for F1, F2, F3, F4.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wells, is there a second?
Second.
Mr.
He had
Oh,
Paul,
sorry,
yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Paul.
Paul, yeah.
And who was the second?
I was.
And Mr. Wells is the second. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. I will call for a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting. Moved by Mr. Paulson, is there a second? Mr. LaRosa. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we'll move to the regular meeting. I'll entertain a motion for item A, 1 and 2, approval of minutes.
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Ms. Keller, a second by Mr. Wells. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Presentations on items, Mr. Harrison?
Yes, we just want to give another congratulations out to our graduates from this past year. Also, thank you to our music department, our business department, our facilities and grounds, clerical staff. A big shout out to Ms. Keefe in our high school office, our teachers and staff who showed up to support our students at graduation, and most importantly to all our employees who had an impact on our students' lives in the Saugerties School District. So thank you to everybody involved.
Public recognition. Any member of the public wishing to address the board, please approach the podium.
No, it's just a joke I have. I'm so excited. So, I should turn this on. First thing, Dan, the kid hand in the back. Thank you. So, from BOCES coming to represent Saugerties, the last board meeting for BOCES, we received the lookbook. I just want to share for you all to see. So the lookbook is the annual, it's the annual publication of the Fashion Design and Marketing Program for BOCES. I'm always so impressed that as that document comes down to you, you'll see, similar to how on board, we were always looking for growth. You're always looking for education. This is a document that demonstrates for our fashion program, the growth, you can see not all the products are beautiful, not everything is absolutely stitched perfectly, but the lookbook gives you an example of what does the fashion program do, some of the trips they take, some of the speakers they have that come in. On the back page, it talks about their advisors and the advisory committee. And one of the first names is Starla Bowe, who graduated from Saugerties, is now a student at Bard and is on the advisory committee for our program here at BOCES. So to see the strength and the growth of the programs from alumni to students and as well as our district. So love bringing that in. I went to the graduation, saw the pieces done firsthand, saw the students wearing their garments it's amazing. And to know that we actually have students that leave our program that actually enter the Fashion Institute of Technology down in New York City. Amazing program there. So, good things. Also wanted to share, BOCES is tomorrow having its organizational meeting. At that meeting, we'll be doing all of what you have just done in terms of our approvals, but also we tabled at the last meeting our attendance policy, and I wanted to share the experience only because, especially for new board members or even some of our newer board members, it for me was an example of what happens with Robert's Rules of Order. So we've been working on the attendance policy, and I've talked about it in past meetings. BOCES is working on an attendance policy that is not focused on sitting in your seat. It's not about counting heads. It's not about how many kids attended every day. It's about how engaged are our students, how involved, and how where's the learning? What are we getting for the students? Not about did they attend, were they on time? It's did we teach? Did they learn? Did they take from the experience? So we've developed what I feel is, and I have to say, just like Saugerties, last month we approved a code of conduct that was developed by administrators with student input. It was from the ground up. This is the same for the attendance policy. But because it's so new and has such a new direction, it's complex. It's not easy reading. So one of our board members put the document through a reading app, and it came back at level 16. So a few of our board members said that's not okay. We need to have language in all of our documents that's of an 8th grade level. So in the period of time, so during the meeting, that a vote was made to put it back to the policy committee. The policy, that motion failed, so it didn't go back to the policy committee. The motion to approve the attendance policy, though, passed 5 to 3. And unfortunately, we are an 11-member board. So it failed because we did not have a quorum. So now, it doesn't go back to policy. We can't talk about it because there's nothing to talk about. There's not a motion on the table. It failed. So in the meantime, we did have some board members who voted no, who did some more research on it and realized it's language. Most of the language that we can't change is language coming out of the state education department, and it's language that's coming out of requirements. We're not going to change that to 8th grade language. That's in the law. So one of our board members that voted no on it is going to be bringing it back tomorrow, and hopefully we'll see that pass. But when it comes back to you as a district, I do hope that you'll see the desire and the drive to do something really unique, and it's I think, going to be really looked at around the state as well as probably the country regarding attendance and how we really change our perspective of attendance. So I did want to share that with you all, let you know that some really amazing things are happening on a board level at BOCES, and I look forward to coming back and sharing it with you again in the future, and then coming home. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Peter Kramer, and I'm here tonight to actually tell a story. First of all, congratulations to the new board members, and congratulations to Mr. Ursig, if he's does any kind of a job like he did at school and football, you've got a good one. A story I'm going to tell is sort of like if you've ever talked to a World War II veteran, you know it's something you're not going to get out of a textbook. The stories are unbelievable. I had a privilege of talking to a 99-year-old who was at Pearl Harbor when he was born. And those stories are unbelievable. Well, this story is about a man that used to work here. And I hope it gets recorded because maybe it could be put near the plaque of Cahill School or whatever. But it's about Larry Cahill. When I came here in 1963, yes, I'm that old, I talked to Larry a lot because I was the new kid on the block, physical ed, coaching, and he was very interested in what I had to say, and of course I was very, very interested in what he had to say. But the story is an unbelievable story. And of course he was involved in physical ed and in coaching, and so he was very willing to talk to me, and we shared a lot of stories together. But he tells a story of a basketball game that was going to be held between Saugerties and Tivoli. Wouldn't you know, that morning we had a pretty bad storm. So the buses were not going to be able to run. Somehow Larry convinced the superintendent that we needed to play this game and we could still do it. I wished I had the exact date. It probably was in the late 40s, maybe very early 50s. I'm guessing late 40s. He takes the basketball team across the river and plays Tivoli and walks them back across the river. Now, some people say, how's that possible? Well, you know the stories of the ice harvesting and so forth, and that's what they did. They walked across the river and they better walk back. So I just wanted to get that in because I'm not going to be here forever. And I was, in 1972, I was on the Board of Education, and I was instrumental in getting Main Street changed to Cahill School, as your father was at Glasgow School, instrumental in naming it Riccardi School, Jeff. So I hope that gets recorded and people will somehow remember it because it is an unbelievable story, and I'm glad to share it with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did Saugerties win?
Excuse me?
Did Saugerties win?
I believe they did.
Mr. Harrison, Dr. Harrison, the superintendent's report.
So we're going to have a presentation from BBL.
So good evening, Jeff Andrews of BBL representing the project, Tetra Tech, unable to make it today, so we'll try and fill in for them as best we can. Again, wanted to talk about the capital improvement project, touching very briefly on the energy performance contract and then the capital outlay project at the end, and then there'll be a little time for questions if any come up. We've provided this slide before. It's basically the schedule of how we're going to attack the projects on the various schools. some running in summer 2023, some in 2024, and some on the shoulder seasons wrapping up in 2024. Again, so far as we've progressed, we are on target for that. Again, similar slide that you've seen before. Now we get into some pictures. A lot of pictures within this kind of showing progress throughout the buildings. The middle school, high school, we've got the sheathing that we are removing for the ephes on the exterior in the high school area. Going back in there with new fire-treated plywood sheathing and glass rock sheathing installed. This installation should be progressing here within the next week or so. So those that are here in attendance, you can see the progress is on the outside of the building as we are. You've also seen, as anyone that's here has come in, we've taken a large section of the site over. This is area that we are doing some repaving, some milling, some sections that's going to complete asphalt replacement, and new structures. So you can see some of the storm piping structures here being installed. The lawn is being restored over at the underground installation at the north side of the site. We extended that. Click it. Click him enough to
And you're a much better
Oh.
clicker.
We're moving now a little bit. Again, we were replacing the force main, which is basically the sanitary sewer that's coming in. So we've got that progressing. New water line, new fire hydrant installation. You can see progressing there. We also have the road that we are installing. So as you come in, we've now segregated that. We're now using the egress for two-way work right now, but we have installed preparation for the new road. We had some unsuitable soils we've gotten out of there, boxed out and taken care of. We have new generators that are going in for the middle school and the high school, and we've got conduit runs there complete. We also had 4 canopies around the school that had asbestos need to be abated, so those have all been taken care of so far. Over in Cahill, we are taking out and replacing 2 floors of flooring, the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor. We are doing that in 23. On 24, we're going to do the lower level and the 1st floor. You can see here that it's a lot of dirty work going on, tearing up the existing, bringing in the new subfloor. We also have a lot of roofing that's going on here. We have done a significant amount. We are getting ready to do the shingle work around there, and that finger in the lower left-hand corner is pointing to the area that we're going to do that work. Over at Morse Elementary School, we have extended the area here that you can see in the photo of the parking. So we've extended that out, getting that prepared for paving. Plan is in August to do the paving within all of the building sites that we've got paving to do. We've also extended out, this is the stage addition outside of the gymnasium. We've got the foundation excavated, sub-base installed. We have prepped the foundation walls, and today, as we click through there, we actually did pour those, so those are ready here to be stripped come tomorrow, with masonry coming here very shortly. We've also done some interior removals, and there were some exterior soffits that had some abatements to be done. All that work has been included and completed currently. EPC project, again, We've completed all the general scope. We're currently going through doing the punch list and doing some of the closeout there. Not much to talk about on that particular aspect within here. The capital outlay project at Riccardi. We have completed a large section of that prior to summer school beginning. At the conclusion of summer school, we're trying to work on a plan to wrap up the remainder of Corridor 117, which is the section that is to the north that needs to be taken care of in that nurse's office. Within Riccardi, we are going through, this is the work that was done prior to, the summer school starting. Went through, applied on all of the concrete floors, moisture mitigation. It's basically a product to make sure that if there were any floor moisture, that it's not going to start peeling the flooring that we're putting down. So that is one of the items that was in the specification, included throughout all concrete floors. So that work is the process there. You can see what it looks like when it dries. It goes from this kind of darker to a dry product that's a lighter color. You can almost see the side-by-side here of the floors as they're prepped, getting through, and then the final flooring as we've progressed here. So a significant difference between the flooring that was there and the flooring that is there now. Some more pictures. So with that, do we have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Before I start, I just wanted to introduce Mr. Goldbeck, who will be our interim business manager.
Good evening, Matt.
Thanks for coming tonight. Just wanted to share on a couple things. First and foremost, the feedback on our security guard survey that went out. So this was distributed to all of our parents and staff members via text message as well as email blast. It's also available on our website to complete the survey. All right, so we had 331 unique responses. There were one duplicate that I took out of the data. 231 identified as parents, 115 identified as employees, and then 14 identified as students. They do not add up to 100 because some identified in multiple areas. So for the question of, I would support having armed, carrying of firearms, certified security guards at Cahill, Riccardi, and Morris. About 81% agreed with that statement. At the secondary level, we had about 83% agree with that statement, having armed security guards at the secondary level. We did break down the data a little further. So this is just parents of elementary students and how they responded for Cahill, Riccardi, and Morris. And we see that 86.7 agree with that statement. Then we looked at just secondary parents, similarly in the 80% range of agreement with that statement. We looked at the 14 students, similar results, 86% agreed with it at the elementary level. Just about 85% for the secondary campus as well. And then lastly for employees, about 81% agreed with having armed security at Cahill, Riccardi, and Morris. And then about 82% for the secondary campus. So the results were pretty consistent across the board for that. Then we looked at some sample responses to kind of get a theme. So I did pull out some sample responses. I'll read them to you because I know it's hard to read from back there. These are the responses that kind of embodied the overall theme of what was said. So some said armed security personnel can respond with force if facing a threat of equivalent force. An unarmed security guard is as much a risk of a potential shooting as other students and faculty. Provides little protection. There's absolutely no reason for our kids to not be protected to the fullest extent. If they can carry it correctly, it's very safe. The purpose for certified security guards is to provide more protection against unknown threats. time equals life. Having an armed security guard could provide life-saving seconds, minutes, or hopefully zero harm. As we know, in any safety situation, every second counts. Comments against it are along the lines of, there is no data showing the presence of armed security makes students safer. The presence of an armed security makes some people feel safer. Catering to this perception over facts leads to an inevitable false sense of security and unintended consequences. Having an armed guard just makes the school look secure and safe when in reality does not make much of a difference. Guns don't belong in a school. It only reinforces gun culture, which is the problem in the first place. Instead, use taxpayer resources to educate about gun violence. When our teachers are armed with everything they need to provide healthy social and emotional wellness for their students and themselves, we can then begin to consider budgeting for a security guard at the schools. So just a flavor of the themes there. Now, with the survey, you will notice that Mount Marion is not referenced in the survey. We are working with Ulster County, with Ulster BOCES in reference to having a partnership with their security that's provided there as well. So we have not left off Mount Marion by any means. We're working with them to come up with a unified solution for that building as well. So next steps, the RFP did go out. It went out to 8 security firms that we were made aware of. We did get 4 responses. We have opened those packets and we've identified companies that we'd like to interview with. So we have interviews set up next Monday and Wednesday. I'll be asking for board members if you're available to participate in that process. After interviewing those security firms, then we'll ultimately be making a recommendation to the board about which company to use and then which path to take, whether it's armed or unarmed. And then once that's identified, we'll be scheduling a meeting with the principals, SRO, police department, security firms to discuss expectations and protocols for each building. And then we'll have general checkups and follow-ups throughout the year to make sure it's working as we want it to work for that. Okay. Any questions on that part of this? Yeah.
So as you, am I on? Yeah. As you know, I'm very much against armed security. I'm not against an armed SRO as they're trained. We are dealing with companies that are going to be the, I guess, responsible bidder. I think if this is the will of the public, then it's the will of the public, but I do ask that special training be taken into account, considering we have a decent-sized special ed population, and special ed students, especially autistic people, are more likely to not survive a police encounter than other people. They can't follow directions, they don't follow commands, communication is an issue. I just want to go on record that I'm against it, and that if this is the way we're going to proceed, please make sure that this training is in place. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a lot of that is going to come out of hopefully our interviews with the companies. See the training that people go through, how they hire their staff, how they evaluate them, and yearly follow-ups as well. So thank you for sharing that. I also just wanted to share out some end-of-year results, Regents exams. So I just picked the kind of the main ones from each discipline. So Algebra 1, we had a pass rate of about 71%, and then a pass rate with the special appeals at about 90% for that. So the special appeals come into play since COVID. New York State has allowed for a lower score on the Regents exams in order to qualify for the Regents exemption for that. There's also special appeals for students with IEPs as well. Living environment is a pass rate of about 71%, with special appeals is almost about 90%. Global history, 86% roughly, and then 95% with special appeals, and then ELA was 90.45% with a special appeal pass rate of 96%. So, right, this is just the global results. Our staff and teams will be going through and breaking it down further by various subgroups as well to get a better picture of what's going on. Next, I want to share out graduation data. This is just for Saugerties High School. As you know, if you go to the New York State reporting site, the district data will include out-of-district students, but this is students who went through Saugerties High School. So June, we had 169 graduates out of 188 that are identified in the cohort. So we anticipate the percent being 89.89%. We do have 2 students who we do believe will finish in August for a anticipated August graduation rate of 90.9. One of those students, who I happen to know from my time at the high school and kind of staying in contact with him, has a unique story, and I'm super excited to be celebrating him when he does finish. We had 2% complete with the SAC certificate, 1% local, 56% with a Regents diploma, 22% Regents with advanced designations, and then 19% with advanced designations and honors distinctions. 66% were continuing on to a 4-year, 2-year, or other post-secondary institution. 18% were planning on going in deployment, and then 2% for military. So just a brief recap of the year. Also, I just wanted to share out, as part of my entry plan, I have contacted the board already about setting up individual meetings, so I can hear from you, your concerns, things you see on the horizon 5-10 years out, and where you'd like our district to go. I'll be doing the same with community organizations and various other stakeholder groups throughout.
That's it. Any questions? Does the 66% include like vocational?
Yes.
So that's anything.
Thank you.
We move to board member remarks. Any board member wishing to speak? Mr. Olson?
I'd like to welcome all the new and returning board members. To remind everybody watching that this is a volunteer position, so I want to thank them all for volunteering their time. I want to thank Mr. Mooney for his time as VP, and congratulate Mr. Rousey. Congratulations.
Anyone else? Mr. Wall?
Thanks, Mr. Tillman. I also appreciate the service of anybody that's in this capacity. And so congratulations as well to Mr. Tillman and Mr. Riazzi is in order. Ms. Barringer, your book has made it to this other side. I did want to comment, just because Ms. Barringer brought up taking a look at the attendance policy in Ulster BOCES. And one of the things that she mentioned talked about, the basically, a 13th grade level, the text, essentially, when it was tested, amounted to something along the lines of the 13th grade level. And I had done similar things with policies along the lines in a high school many, many years ago. And I think the point is a good point for all of us in education, that when we talk about the accessibility of our documents, we need to recognize that despite the fact that we can use a lot of acronyms, and we do in education, and we do it in a lot of specific areas within education, we need to make sure that public policies are accessible by the public. And in some respects, that may include making sure that we are really articulating and spelling out things like acronyms, not just in documents but in meetings. So I appreciate the fact that you brought that up. The accessibility of our language when we're writing policies, when we're sending things home to families, is very, very important. One of the things that I was looking at and thinking about when I read through this agenda, I've already shared. I'm very, very, very pleased with the work that was done to develop a protocol surrounding in the unlikely event that we have a suicide in our school. And it just so happens that for me, as I reflected and read through a lot of that stuff, I also, as I often do, I think people here recognize at this point, I reflect on some of my experiences. And I happen to share with a number of members of the class of 1987 a pretty astounding statistic. And that is this: prior to our graduation in 1987, our class had 6 students that died prior to graduation. Now, none of those was a suicide, and they did not all, happen the same way, right? But But my point is this: when I look at the work that's being done nowadays in something like this policy, and I think about the efforts that we make to make sure we're reaching out to families, reaching out to students, providing comfort areas, and all of the different ways that we recognize some of the trauma that's involved in that type of thing. We're taking care of our school. It's not something that we had the advantage of, really, that I recall in 1985, for instance. So it just kind of drove home the point for me that this work that was undertaken for that particular policy, and I know it's included in tonight's the district emergency plan again, it really stood out. And for further context, when you work in high school or anywhere in a school district usually, but high school typically, you also realize that right now we're in the midst of the 100 most deadliest days there are for high school students, teenagers, and it typically, they talk about the 100 most deadliest days, they're talking about Memorial to Labor Day. It's something to keep in mind, as I know Jim oftentimes talks about being mindful of traffic when we start school, open school, mindful of the buses, recognizing that, we are within this window where automobile accidents, risk-taking behavior, things associated with celebration, graduations, et cetera, it is typically a pretty deadly time for students statistically. And it's something that I would just like to say out loud, acknowledge, and make sure that we're all cognizant and thinking about. Our students are gone, but they'll be back in September, and we hope all of them are coming back in September. We want them to be safe. Thank you.
Anyone else? None being heard, I'll move into board president remarks. Thank you for your support in electing me as president. It's going to be an interesting year. I want to congratulate Dr. Ursig publicly for becoming superintendent. I view this is really the start of the school year. It's not in September. The school year started with our reorganizational meeting. And Dr. Ursig is kind of like a Captain Stubing on the Love Boat. He's going to lead the district on a voyage for us in months where we end up in June at the football field for graduation. And he can't do it alone. It really takes the cooperation of the board, it takes the cooperation of the administration, the teaching, even the students. On any given day, things could fall apart if you don't have that cooperation of all the individuals involved. So I wish you great success, and it's going to be interesting. I want to thank Jim Mooney for his time as vice president. He'll be missed, but I know he's still going to be active on the board. I want to say farewell to Jane St. Amour, our business official, who is leaving us. This might be your last board meeting unless we have an emergency meeting in July. So thank you for your time with the district, and you've really transformed the business office and made it a really well-oiled machine. I was so pleased to be at graduation, even though it was kind of a wet graduation, and to see the students succeed. Dr. Ursig gave a statistic that we had 66% of our graduates going on to college. When I first came on the board, that statistic was a lot lower. So it's good to see that our kids are experiencing more opportunities for success, and I'm pleased with that. So I look forward to just a new beginning and a new positive year with our administration. Thank you. We'll take a short break and then reconvene in about 5 minutes.
got a couple of things I guess we'll talk about before COVID. And like first or second was the great session. Okay,
I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Ed back to order. In my remarks, I forgot to welcome our new board members, but you are very welcome, and thank you for your commitment to serve the district. I'll entertain a motion for item H, personnel, instructional, non-instructional, item 1 through A through J, item 2, item 3, moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wells. Any discussion? None being heard, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Churchill is in attendance. Ms. Churchill, our new special director, congratulations. Business office recommendations, I'll entertain a motion for I1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Moved by Mr. Poston. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Kilmer. Discussion? Mr. Moore?
You can go first.
You know, it's a question. You know, I mean, obviously I see in 3, raising the school lunch prices a little bit, nominal amount for some, maybe not so much for others, but I'm just wondering in the context of, you know, the governor expanding opportunity for students to get free lunch, just contextually fit this in for me. We're expanding our access to free lunch, but the kids that can pay more.
Okay, so what's required of us each year is, it's called a paid lunch equity calculator, and we're required to put in certain information, and it does calculation, and it tells us how much we should be charging. So we have to charge an equivalent amount to the reimbursement that we're getting for the free and reduced population. So it's required. And then just to touch on the free meals a little bit, we found out that the state said they were going to pick up that portion that the federal government isn't. So with the community eligible provision, but we found out that it's not going to start until next April. So our school lunch manager did a calculation just for 2 elementary schools. If we move to the CEP, the community eligible provision now, which we qualified with the 2 elementary schools, we would lose about $8,000 a month without that state picking up the piece.
That's per building? Or is that total?
I think it's total between the 2. So that's kind of a lot to lose to wait until April. So we talked about waiting until next year, then getting in on it, rather than lose all that money. It doesn't make sense. So, and then hopefully by that time, the federal government will have made a decision on whether they want to move the floor down to 25%, and then all of our schools should be eligible to get in on that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll work out.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And just kind of a small second question. It may have come up previously, but do we maintain a fund for people to donate to help students and families, you know, that need to eliminate some of their lunch debt that they may have through the school?
We don't have a separate fund, and currently we don't have that happening, but in my previous district, we actually did have that happen. But what we had to do was, they can't donate for a specific student or family.
Right.
We would take in the donations into the cafeteria fund, And then at the end of the school year, we would offset the negative amount. So let's say the negative amount was $8,000, and we got $7,000 worth of donations. So we would use that to offset that. So then our transfer from the general fund to cover the remaining difference was only $1,000 instead of that $8,000. That's how we did it in my previous district. So
It
we
was
could do
a
that here.
separate specific fund? It was just a separate specific fund or a line or?
No, well, we
Bucking
would take
in?
it in as donation, and it would be within the school lunch fund itself.
Okay.
So, people would, retired folks, which was nice, would send in checks, and then we would just deposit it within that fund, and then at the end of the year, we would offset the loss.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll withdraw my question asked and answered. Thank you.
So, any further discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
J, board action discussion items. I'll entertain a motion for item J1, J2, J3, J4, J5, and J6. J7, J8, J9, J10, J11, J12, J13, J14, J15, J16, J17. I think that's it. Motion by Mr. McClary, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jim. Discussion? Motion heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
K, board discussion items, district safety plan.
So our district safety plan is up for public, or will be up tomorrow for public comment for 30 days as part of the state regulations. In that plan, there is a new section we call traumatic event response. That's the part that Trustee Bowl was referring to earlier about the steps we would take if an event should happen. Thank you.
Committee reports, so we have a changing of the guard with Ms. Barringer leaving as our head of our audit committee. I've asked Ms. Bellarosa if she would entertain being heading up our audit committee, and she accepted. Facilities and visitation committee, Jim?
Hi. So Jeff already pretty much went over everything, the takeaways. We believe that with the EPC and Honeywell that all the leaks have been taken care of, but we really can't tell because we haven't had the need for heat to turn the boilers on to make sure that everything is good. We're not really set yet with the flooring at Riccardi. Ram boards, the thick cardboard on the floor was removed, but I think they're going to end up putting it back down. As Jeff said, we're looking at August for the blacktop, and everybody's kind of looking outside. I think once that comes down, it's really going to pop, and we're going to see a huge, drastic change in the appearance. And I'm sure everybody saw the windows when they came in. And once the exterior of the building is taken care of, the windows will go in. And I think other than that, I think we're right on task. The work at Grant and Morse, the stage is coming along really nice. And the next meeting will be August 2nd at 5 o'clock. We're going to, well, actually, I've actually asked Dr. Polston to assume the reins as facility chair, as I would like to step down, and he has graciously accepted. So this will be my last committee report, and I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Jane and everybody who has, it's been an experience, and it's been a pleasure to work with you, and you will be missed.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. Your time is certainly appreciated. Policy committee, Mike?
Just had pretty routine review of several policies, went with pretty much all the recommendations here, everyone and our attorneys, and our next policy meeting will be for the August board meeting, 5:30.
Okay, and our new board members, Mr. Riazzi and Ms. Kilder, have expressed interest in being on the policy committee. If you guys are okay with that, you've got some new members here, Mr. McClary. Public recognition. Any member of the public wishing to address the board, please approach the podium. None being heard, I'll entertain a motion to recess into executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Yatsi. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Rocco, are you live?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Paulson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McClary, any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
You got that? Yep. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good job for the first session of the board.